Hello, everyone. My name is John Dean. I'm the Managing Director of the DoSomething Foundation here in Australia. I'm also the Australian Coordinator for the RE100 Renewable Energy Initiative. Now, I would like to welcome Stefan Kapferer. He's the CEO of 50Hertz, and he's going to join us now. Now, Stefan, if you can turn on your camera and microphone, that will be great. Now, 50Hertz is one of 4 transmission system operators for electricity in Germany. And it's also a member of the Elia Group. Now, Stefan Kapferer has worked in the Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Technology. Following this, he was also appointed as Deputy Secretary General of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, that's the OECD, of course, in Paris, where he was responsible for the organization of the Department of Science, Technology and Industry, Labor, Employment and Social Security, as well as the Center for Entrepreneurship. Stefan was also previously the chairperson of the BEDEW's, that's the German Association of Energy and Water Industries Executive Board. And now give the floor to Stefan Kapferer, who'll be touching on a topic which is accelerating the energy transition, the 100% RES strategy of 50Hertz. Over to you.
Thank you, John, for the kind welcome, and it was really a pleasure to see Angela Wilkinson again. You mentioned that I was a Deputy Secretary General of the OECD a few years ago in Paris. At the same time, Angela was working for the OECD, and what we can learn from these steps of both of us in the energy world is that the energy transition process is attracting more and more people because it's an extreme relevant topic for the future in our countries, in our society. Yeah, I was invited to say a few words about the 100% renewable strategy of 50Hertz. And some of you may have asked, why is this an interesting story for us? And let me just explain a little bit why we believe this is an interesting topic to be discussed with you to start this startup energy transition dialogue this week. Most of you may know that TSOs are part of a regulated business. So having an own ambition, describing an own strategy as a TSO is not so simple as you can do that as a startup, or traditional industrial companies can do it looking at their clients or looking at the market. Nevertheless, 50Hertz, as one of the 4 TSOs in Germany, is convinced we are part of the need to accelerate the energy transition process in our country. And one reason for that is relatively easy. This is the target of the European Commission, the target of the European Union to become the first climate neutral continent in the world in 2050. We all know that this is a very ambitious target, that this is really a very ambitious challenge for our societies, for our countries. But there's another reason, and the other reason is based on a different target of the European Union, which is not as well known as the climate neutrality target in 2050. A few years ago, European Union also agreed about the target that 20% of the GDP in Europe should be based on industrial activity. And obviously, climate neutrality on the one hand, and 20% GDP share based on industrial activities will only fit together if all these industrial activities in the future will be based on sustainable energy. Normally, direct electrification based on renewable energy, sometimes based on sector coupling technologies, power to gas, power to liquids, but also they are based on renewable energy in the future. And obviously, a TSO, like also the DSOs in our societies, is the most relevant partner for these kind of changes. So what is the commitment of 50Hertz and what does it mean for our business strategy? First of all, 50Hertz was always very successful in integrating renewable energy in our grid infrastructure. 50Hertz is responsible for the eastern part of Germany and Berlin and Hamburg, two big metropoles most of you may know. In 2019, last year, 50Hertz integrated 60% of renewable energy in our grid. The electricity consumption in our control area was 60 terawatt hour last year. Now, we gave the commitment to reach 100% of coverage of electricity demand in 2032 in our control area by 2032. And obviously, electricity consumption will increase in this period. So we expect we need 125 terawatt hours based on renewable energy. So we have to double the amount of renewable energy in our control area in the next 12 years. Why is this needed from our perspective? One thing has changed compared to the first Startup Energy Transition Dialogue a few years ago. And this is that there is a growing interest in all industrial companies in our countries in having a sustainable energy supply. In our control area, for example, we have steel industry. We have a lot of chemical industry. We have aluminum. We have copper industry. We have some kind of automotive. And all these industries are asking for sustainable energy, are asking for PPAs, are asking for renewable energy. And most of you may know that also Tesla is just now investing in a big gigafactory close to Berlin in our control area. And at the end, the electricity consumption in these Tesla factory will be similar to the electricity consumption of a city like Leipzig with more than 600,000 inhabitants. So the growing demand for renewable energy is a main driver for the strategy of 50Hertz, because we want to banter, on the one hand, tackling climate change, and on the other hand, organizing the right sustainable framework for industrial activities in our countries in the future. Because everybody should have in mind the public support for the ambitious targets at the European level and in all our societies is closely linked to a situation that we will also have existing workplaces in the future, that we will create new workplaces in the future, and that we are able to safeguard the wealth of our nations in these transition processes. What is needed for a TSO like 50Hertz with this strategy? First of all, and that's obvious, a growing investment in renewable energy. Nobody will be surprised. Secondly, a clear focus of political decision makers in speeding up the permission processes of the grid infrastructure. We often have a situation that it is not a gap or a lack of investment. It is not a lack of interest of companies to do these jobs. It is a lack of political priorities in many of our countries, and this has to change. But thirdly, and I think that's the most relevant topic for the Startup Energy Transition Dialogue, we need a lot of additional expertise, a lot of additional know-how. Because traditionally, energy system, an electricity system, is based on some existing fossil power plants. When we have volatile situation in the renewable energy capacity, it's not a problem. We use some of the existing nuclear or coal power plants in our areas. But this will change. Germany will phase out the last nuclear power plant next year, and Germany will phase out its coal power plants at latest till 2038. So obviously we need technology, we need expertise and know-how to run a system which is then mainly based on renewable energy. And if we want to become climate neutral till 2050 in the whole of Europe, it will run mostly with renewable energy and maybe in some countries a little bit of nuclear. So what is needed? We need an expertise to restart a system if we have a brownout or a blackout in our control area with renewable energy. We need balancing energy based on renewable. We need all these auxiliary services in an electricity system which are at the moment mainly based on fossil power plants, in the future based on renewable energy. And there are a lot of opportunities for startups and new businesses because three things will change. The system of the future will be more digital than ever before. Not only to a situation that we have millions of generation capacities, wind farms, solar capacity, offshore wind, biomass, hydro, but also millions of electric vehicles, millions of charging stations, millions of batteries at home linked to the solar capacity at the roof and electric vehicles in front of the house. All these system has to be managed by big data, has to be managed by us as a TSO. So we need much more digital expertise as we have today. But that's not the only thing. We also need big data to run the system with a better forecast. Artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, all these technologies will be needed to run a system which is no longer based on a few big power plants, which will be more than ever before based on a million of small units. So, from our perspective, there are three winners in the future of the energy sector. The first winner is digital. Of course, we will need big data, we will need smart technologies to run the system in the future. The second winner, also obvious to everybody, is consumer and prosumer. Obviously, we will need a lot of flexibility, sometimes at the industrial level, but mostly at the private household, with electric vehicles, with storage. All these additional flexibilities will be needed to manage a system which is mainly based on volatile renewable energy. And the third winner, and this will be maybe for some of you a surprise when I talked before about prosumers and consumers, the third winner will be the grid infrastructure. Because if we want to have an industrialized country also in the future, if we are interested to have an industrialized continent, Europe, also in the future, with a sustainable energy supply, obviously, we also need a grid infrastructure to interconnect the different member states of the European Union, to interconnect the big amount of offshore wind farms in the Baltic and in the North Sea, and also in the Mediterranean Sea, with our industrial sites in Europe. So grid infrastructure is the third pillar of a sustainable energy system in 2050, when Europe will become the first climate neutral country. Thank you.
Stefan, thank you very much for that. I wouldn't mind just asking you a couple of questions, if I may. You said there to achieve the 100% renewables goal, you pointed out that different stakeholders need to work closely together. How does 50Hertz cooperate and work together with those other players? You know, people from industries, startups, stakeholders, you know, from the innovation scene. How do you do that?
Yeah, first of all, we started a cooperation with the union here in Germany, the union which is responsible for our industry, but also for the chemical industry, for example, IGBCE, which is also responsible for the phasing out industry of mining. So they are interested in new industrial workplaces in the future. And we started a very clear cooperation with them because we believe to bring together these interests of a company with the interest of the workers is relevant for the future. Traditionally, we often had a situation that there was more conflict about NGOs on the one hand and industrial workers on the other hand. We think we have to overcome this conflict, and that's easier if we are able to present a brighter future for them, that there are also additional workplaces in the future. But another stakeholder which is extremely relevant for us is the existing energy-intensive industry. What we have learned in the last 2-3 years is an extreme growing interest with high sustainable ambitions also in these companies, what to do with electricity demand, what to do about fossil fuels they use at the moment, how can they be replaced by renewable energy. And of course, startups are extremely relevant for us. We cooperate with startups in many European countries when we talk about forecasting of data in the grid infrastructure, when we talk about how do we manage flexibility in the grid infrastructure in the future. So startups are a relevant partner in this transition process. We are a very traditional business, you can imagine, John. So we need this kind of innovation, which is brought in from the startups into our business.
Now, I am the Australian coordinator for RE100, and there's, many companies have now already gone 100% renewable, but for others, there are technical hurdles in getting to that 100% renewable status. What is currently the biggest technical hurdle that you're facing in achieving that 100% renewable goal? Is it a technical hurdle, or is it political or societal? Or are they political or societal hurdles?
Yeah, both of them, or all of third of them. Of course, we all know that there is a NIMBY situation in most of our societies when we discuss investment in renewable energy, when we discuss investment in grid infrastructure. I mentioned that some of the hurdles we see are political hurdles, but obviously the technical hurdles are the hurdles we have now in mind, especially because what is different to Google or BMW, which are telling us, okay, we want to have 100% of renewable energy supply in 20-something. Obviously, if you are interested to have it as a traditional industrial company, you need a supplier, you need a PPA, whatever, and then it's working. For us, it's a little bit different because we are also responsible for the stability of the grid infrastructure, for the stability of the system. And security of supply is obviously for all of us an extreme relevant aspect. In Germany, we have a situation that a normal private household has no electricity in the average over the whole year of 13 minutes. That's nothing. But we can imagine it is a problem if this will go up. It is a problem for industrial companies if the situation of a brownout or a blackout will come. So to manage these technical hurdles, to base a system 100% on renewables, and at the same time to guarantee also in the future that security of supply is working as we are used to it, that's the most relevant topic for us as a company.
Well, Stefan, thank you very much for your input. It was great chatting with you. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, we're just going to have a very brief break in the broadcast, and afterwards, when we come back, we'll be talking with Thomas Burr, the Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer at E.ON. Do hang around. We'll be back very shortly.